So you come in magically through the door. You see us. We're trying to be organized. Where do we start in this process?
Well, I get everybody in the room and go, what's got all of your attention about this enterprise right now? And we're going to do the capture step, right? First thing we're going to do. What's not on cruise control, by the way, for you guys?
Almost everything except for the...
Give me an example.
We haven't streamlined our processes, contacting guests, organizing guests.
Right.
That whole process.
Guest contact process. That would go up on a whiteboard. Great. What else?
What else do we have? Social media.
Cool. Just put social media up there. Fabulous. What else?
What else do we have? What are the other key components? Organizing interviews.
Great. Organizing interviews. That'd go up there too.
Paperwork.
Let's put paperwork up there. Great. Did you just write those down, by the way?
No, but I'm recording this.
Okay. Well, no, right now. So you're going to ask me what would I do next?
Okay. Writing them down.
But first of all, we'd get all of that, however long that would take. By the way, if that was for any one of you individually, that would take 1 to 6 hours.
So then,
to get everything that's on a typical mid to senior level professionals, when we coach them desk side, takes anywhere from 1 to 6 hours just to identify all of those kind of things.
Okay, so it's basically a brain dump. Get it all out.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the first step. And we just do it that as long as we needed to do that. Then what we do is we take each one of those and go, what exactly is that? What does that mean? Give me one of those, by the way, that you just wrote.
Daily schedule.
You get to mark that situation off as done or handled or complete when what's true. What's the project on this?
So we need to identify an end to anything.
Yeah. Why did you get to mark, that will no longer have your attention when what's true. What's the project? Is this research something, clarify something, install something, implement something? What is it?
Streamline. Great.
So streamline whatever it is, whatever the process, the scheduling process. Right. Great. So now you got a project. Right. So now we have the project. And what's the next action? If you guys had absolutely nothing to do but that, what's the very first thing someone would do right now to move the needle on it?
I'm going to switch gears. We have a big picture project, which is we're building a membership club for people. We know that's done once it's up and running, once it's been rolled out to people. So we have what our goal is. Then the next step on that is?
Yeah. What's the next action?
Brainstorm more and look at what that looks like.
How would you do that?
Sit down, write down the ideas. We like to mind map.
Together or individually?
Individually first.
Great. So how would you get everybody to individually do that?
Well, since it's Jessica and myself, we could say, let's go mind map on this and compare maps.
Okay. So now you have a next action.
Yeah.
Right. By when do you want to do that? How are you going to get together? Do you want to set a meeting first or what? You want to inform each other once you've done it or what?
Okay, by Friday.
Who decides that? Who owns the project?
I like how you're going for clarity here.
Going for freedom.
Who owns the project? We'll say me.
Did you say you or is it you?
It is me.
Got it. Okay. So then so then what's the next action on this that you need to have happen to move toward closure?
We'd need to come up with a mind map, come up with it by Friday, and then figure out what the next steps are that we need to take.
Great. So what's your next action on this?
Next action, I think we discussed, is the mind map.
What's your next action to get your partner to do this?
Discuss it with her.
How would you do that?
Hey, Jessica, I've spoken with Dave and Alan in an interview.
Is that a face-to-face drive-by or is that an email or a WhatsApp or a what?
Face-to-face.
Okay. Does a face-to-face just happen ad hoc or do you need to set up the face-to-face?
Great question. Ad hoc is fine.
Great. So next thing would be what's your partner's name?
Jessica.
Yeah, at Jessica list. Mm-hmm. So do you have an at Jessica list?
No.
Well, then how about you start a little list called at Jessica and you start keeping track of all the stuff where when she's in front of you, it will move the needle on as many things for which that's the next step. Now you got an at Jessica, so the next time you see her, you pull that up, you'll handle that. But you said you need it by Friday. You're going to make sure will you see her before next Friday?
She's my wife. I'll see her shortly.
No, they're just checking. I don't care if you're your wife or not.
But yes, I'll see her before then.
Great. And you've got a next action for yourself too, which is what?
Create that mind map before we meet on it.
Cool. And do you do that at a computer or do you like to do it by hand? How do you do mind?
I like to do it by hand.
Cool. So that could be a pretty much anywhere next action, right? Mm-hmm. Just has a due date on it.
So how am I keeping up with these things? Is it on paper? Is it on, how do I keep track of this amount of stuff that you're talking about now?
Yes. You keep track. Write it on your butt, hire 14 people that just follow you around 24/7 and let them remind you when you need to be reminded. Get a digital list manager app. Mm-hmm. I don't care. Doesn't matter. You just better keep it out of your head.
Yeah.
Using the GTD methodology, because I mean, we observe this every day, and I'm just as guilty of it as the next guy. Where do we start unpacking these things? So the first one that you mentioned was capture. I'm guessing that's the starting point of this whole process and how we take control. So I'll turn it over to you. Maybe walk us through these in more detail.
Well, let's suppose I was sitting next to you, Michael, right now, and I was coaching you and walking you into this methodology, right? Right. Because I do that.
Sure.
We do that. I mean, that's how this all got developed and researched. First thing we do is, gee, Michael, what's on your mind right now? Or by the way, what around you in your little studio there does not belong there permanently, or on your desk or work area? And we just find the triggers called what has your attention. That's where we need to start, is what are the things pulling on you? So when you say people sit down and go, I got all this stuff to do. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's list them out.
Interesting.
Write them down, right? So you have the tools right in front of you right there, the best tools for capturing, which is pen and paper, right? So I would just have you start, hey, Michael, by the way, what's on your mind? By the way, you want to share anything?
Sure. Hey, let's do a live one here. So what's on my mind is I have a webinar that needs to be set up for Friday that I haven't done yet.
Right. So just write that down.
Okay.
So
Webinar
Friday. Cool.
Something else. And this is a first for DPB viewers, by the way. We're getting a live. Well, the fact that I have 2 other podcasts back to back right after this, and I need to be able to get things off the memory card and clear up space and all those things.
Yeah, the right podcast coming. All right. What else on your mind? Anything else? Any other projects or anything else that's sort of top of mind in terms of your life and when today is done or when you finish with all of this?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, we've got corporate partners in town, and we're having meetings about new product development.
Cool. Just write that down. New product dev.
Okay, so now we have all of these things out, and you could already sense I was getting ready to go there. I'm thinking family. I'm thinking all these sorts of things.
Yeah, you should.
Now that I have them all out on paper, where do I go?
Well, then you go one at a time. Basically, it's the way you empty your in basket. So the first thing you did was put stuff into your in basket, much like email that's piling up or social media is piling up for you right now.
Sure.
Those are meeting notes you take in the meetings you're going to have, et cetera. Those are all things you need to say, okay, that's raw input, but I can't leave it there. If you leave it there, you'll still reinforce the stress you're in because you keep looking at that and going, oh, God, there's decisions I still need to make about all those things I haven't done yet.
Right.
And so there's some thinking and decision making. That's step 2, which is clarify now exactly what those things mean that you just wrote down. Let's take the last one because that'll be the more complex one there to begin with that you wrote down. So that's something about you've got people in town, you're having meetings about something, your product development.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So there are 2 questions. Well, the first thing you need to do in terms of clarification is this something you're committed to move on? Sounds like it is.
Yeah.
Right? Top of mind stuff.
Sure.
Because a lot of times we get input that, hey, there's nothing I need to do about that. I just need to park it as a reference or trash it or whatever. But that's a real actionable thing. If it's actionable, there are 2 key questions to ask and answer that you may not have asked and answered yet. First question is, Michael, what's the very next thing you need to do about that thing? If you had nothing else to do but move the needle on what you just wrote down about that, where would you go right now? What would you do? What's the physical, visible next action you would need to take?
I would, see, now it gets a little bit deeper. I have no idea.
and who would, or how would you find out what to do?
I would probably have another meeting with the people I brought into town.
And how would you do that?
I would leave my studio here and I would walk down the hall and I would sit down with them and say, okay, where are we at?
Great. So that's an action you need to take and you need to do it in your office.
Yes.
Right. So great. So you got a next action called set meeting with X people, XYZ, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that have to happen today?
Yes.
Okay, then that would go on your calendar if that were me.
Yeah.
So I'm skipping to step 3, which is organize. So once you made the decision about what you need to do, the next step is, okay, now, will that one action complete whatever this is about?
Yes.
No, whatever the whole thing is about.
Oh, no. No, it
Correct.
definitely won't.
Therefore, you have a project, right? Therefore, you have some outcome you've committed to complete about this. So, Michael, give it this situation that you wrote down, you get to mark all that off as complete or done when what's true.
The product is launched.
Are you sure you're going to launch the project, or is this still in research mode?
No, the money says we're definitely going to launch this project.
Great. And can that happen within a year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Then you have a project called launch product, right? So now you've got an outcome and you have an action step. Now you're committed to launch the product. The way you're going to start to move the needle is walk down the hall and talk to people and set a meeting. Got it? Now, if you park those 2 reminders, now, for instance, if you parked on your calendar, said, hey, today I got to go set that meeting. And if that's on your calendar and some part of you trust, you're going to look at that when you get off the phone with me.
Right.
Right? Now you have a trusted action in a trusted place. But how about that? Do you have that launch product on a list that you look at consistently enough to know where you are against that outcome? If you don't yet, then you do not have that in a trusted place. So if you want to get that whole thing off your mind, what you need to do is make those 2 decisions. What's the next step? If that one step will not complete this, what's the outcome I'm committed to? And then park the reminders of those 2 things in places you trust you'll see at the right time and place.
So that could be like a calendar, task management software, those sorts
any of
things.
that. Write it on your butt. Hire 43 people to follow you around and remind you at the right time. Any of that works, as long as that works for you.
I don't have enough money to pay 43 people to look at my butt all day.
Yeah, right. Got it. So, but you don't have to finish that project to get it off your mind. What you do have to do is be appropriately engaged with it. And I just gave you the secret algorithm about how do you get appropriately engaged with that commitment you've made with yourself without having to finish it. Then your mind gets to let it go. But again, your mind can't let it go if it doesn't trust you're going to look at your calendar or be reminded you need to go set the meeting, or it doesn't trust that at least once a week you're going to look at that project and say, what the hell do I need to do next? And that reminds me I need to, that you've got this outcome that you're going to also need to be reminded about. So that's the thinking process that I uncovered over all these years that has to be applied to the stuff. See, most people have to-do lists, but most to-do lists are incomplete lists of still unclear stuff that maintain as much stress as they try to relieve, simply because they didn't go through the process you just went through. And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Did you notice that those things did not happen automatically? You weren't born doing those. Yeah. I had to coach you through that. Those are actually muscles, cognitive muscles you have to train to think, to recognize you need to apply that thought process to everything you just wrote down.
One day I walked into my garage and it was pitch black, and I turned on the light switch and the light bulbs had gone out. And I said, well, I need to change the light bulbs. And I actually put it on my list. And it wasn't moving, just wasn't moving forward. And I kept looking at it, and it's like, I need to change the light bulb. I need to change the light bulb. And I realized at some point that the reason why I was procrastinating on it was because that wasn't the next action. Actually, the next action was to go on the ladder and figure out specifically the light bulb that needed to be in that. And I knew that on one level. I knew that, I don't really think that's the next action. But I thought, well, that's just too granular to actually say, I need to get a ladder. I didn't even own a ladder. But then it wasn't to get the ladder. Actually, the next action was to call Keith and say, Keith, can you come down and bring your ladder so that we can take the globe off and take the light bulb so that I can actually then go to the hardware store and get the light bulb and then go back on the ladder and change it. And that was actually pulling at me over and over and over again because I had never really got it that granular that really the next action was to call Keith. Once I really slowed down and figured out that that's what the next action was, the next day the light bulb was fixed.
You know, the great example about that is that I don't know if any of you are out there going, wow, that really seems like way down a rabbit trail here. But trust me, if you just take 15 seconds to think that out ahead of time, think of the time you're going to save. And you're just looking at something over and over on a list